Hi, welcome back to Past the Florist Studio. As you know, it's been a challenging year in the flower world, and it's very difficult to get flowers right now, and getting specific varieties is very difficult. So I would like to teach all of you how to be creative and go out into the garden, the field, and pick flowers for your bouquet. When you're choosing your flowers and where to pick them, make sure that you get permission. Don't just go out and start cutting in people's gardens. That won't go well. The flowers I'll be using today are complementary, so you would find them kind of next to each other on the color wheel. So I was going to walk all of you through the garden today, but because it's a little cold and wet, I think we're just going to stick around the studio and do a little foraging. This is autumn clematis, kind of intermixed with grapevine, but it's the autumn clematis that we're after because it's such a lovely, delicate vine, very similar to jasmine vine, which is used a lot in bouquets. So we'll pick a little bit of that for our trailing effect. So this goes with we have two palettes today that we're using. We're doing a more purpley blue palette, and we're doing a peachy pink palette. I'm going to do two bouquets. Just showing you how to be creative with what's around you without having to spend a lot of money. You can also supplement your foraged flowers, if you like, with grocery store flowers or any leftover flowers that you might have. A good thing to remember when you're out foraging for your bouquet is to make sure that you're not picking the flowers in the heat of the day, because they will wilt immediately. So go early in the morning or in the evening. Let's go over the tools that we'll be needing today. We will be using snips. These, you might want to make sure that you take these when you go out foraging. Also take some buckets with fresh water, clean buckets with fresh water, if you have a place that you can put those in your vehicle. Sometimes I just carry a bucket around with water in it because I never know what I will find. And the other thing that we'll be needing are rubber bands, just to tie off our bouquets with. Rose strippers are kind of helpful when we're stripping down the leaves off of some of these flowers. So let's get started. When you go out to forage and you come back, you want to remove the leaves because the leaves will make the water really gross. So this is the Autumn Joy sedum. This is one of my favorite wacky weird flowers called toad lily. You can put more interesting things in your bouquets, but if you're a little more traditional, you might want to stick with the basics. You don't have to use rose strippers. You can just take your hands and do it this way too. But if you have something that has thorns on it, obviously you're not going to want to do that. So these are some gorgeous hydrangeas from my mother's garden. This is a beautiful spirea called Ogon. I thought the yellow would be really nice with the purple. Seasonal aster that I picked on the train tracks. So the bouquet we're creating today is a garden style bouquet. We've also done our first YouTube video was how to make a garden style bouquet, but we were using flowers that I bought from my flower supplier, which is fine. And there are plenty of options as far as that goes if you're DIYing your bouquet. But today we're going to do the same garden style bouquet with flowers actually from the garden. So the first thing I'm going to start with is my greenery. And I'm actually not even sure I'm going to like it, but we're gonna start with it. And you hold your hand kind of like a vase. Your hand acts as a vase. And then we're just going to kind of put the flowers and the foliage in at an angle. I usually use the greenery as the armature, the beginning kind of structure of the bouquet to see how I want it. And I'm also using a mirror in front of me because it's really hard to see what you're doing if you're just looking down on it. I think I'm going to do the asters next because these are kind of like a little foliage and love floral drama. Your stems should be kind of splayed out like this. And another thing to think about that I struggle with personally, I'm still working on it, is kind of an in-out placement. So it really gives your bouquet a lot more dimension if got our shape pretty good. Something that you can do with hydrangea, it has lots of little branching. So I might peel out a couple of those or just cut out a couple of those. So this is the foliage, the aster's a little more texture, and the hydrangeas in this situation are focal. Next, we're going to put in the toad lily. This is kind of the whimsical flower. I do like things peeking out, sticking out, adding some fun and whimsy. Okay, so I think we will add the sedum. And I think it's better to have a lot of variety, and you may not use all of it, but at least you have things to choose from. You might get it in there and say, oh, that really doesn't look good. Or that's too similar in shape to the other flowers that are in there. I'm gonna tuck this in here just because I feel like that hydrangea is kind of it needs broken up a little bit. So I'm gonna kind of tuck that in there. Still not 100% sold on the yellow foliage, but we'll see. We might end up cutting it out. It's easy to make it look like polka dots. So that's why doing kind of the in and the out and the clustering together sometimes is useful. I have these 3 roses. I really feel like I'm cheating with these, but let's see what they look like. I feel like these are a little polka dotty, so let's pull one in and see if that helps. There we go. I think that does help. And you do want to make sure that every flower has its moment to shine. I think the last thing I'm going to add, I'm almost done, is some of this autumn clematis, which is really beautiful. Last month I had these beautiful little white blooms on it, but I like the way that it trails. It really adds a nice effect. Still not super happy with that yellow piece right there. I think we're ready to wrap it. So there's our first purple garden style, purple pink toned garden style bouquet. And I will show you what we do as far as ribbon wrapping. We have some of these bits left over that would make really nice boutonnieres. So I just quickly wanted to show you how you could do that as well. Just keep some of these little bits and bobs, and you can quickly put together a lovely little boutonniere that matches your bouquet. And that can be wrapped, pinned, and you have a matching boutonniere. We're just going to do a quick wrap around the bouquet with this double-faced ivory satin ribbon. We usually do that first because we like to use hand-dyed silk ribbon and we don't want it to get wet. So we'll put this around first and then apply the silk ribbon right before the event. So you just kind of catch it on itself. I know how to hold the bouquet, so the pins are facing me. So when I'm looking down on my bouquet, I see the pins. Make sure those stems are nice and straight. Put it in water overnight, give it a fresh cut in the morning, put some fresh water in there. Once we have the satin wrap around the bouquet, then what we do is we pre-cut our silk ribbon. And it's nice to kind of have them all separate, all different lengths. And then I put the ribbon in the opposite side. Okay, so the second bouquet, garden bouquet that we're going to be doing will be completely foraged. And let's go over what we've got with that. So we have this gorgeous heptacodium. It's also known as Seven Suns tree. And it's related to honeysuckle, but it's a beautiful mauve color. We'll also be using some native dogwood, which is gorgeous, every color of the rainbow on those stems. Some hydrangea that are turning that beautiful autumn mauve-y color, so a little green and mauve. And these are coral bells that have gone to seed, which I just love the texture on these. Just a little added whimsy. And this is the painted fern. It's really beautiful. And then one of my personal favorites, this is a hardy chrysanthemum called Sheffield Peach. So let's get started. We're gonna strip these down the same way that we did the other flowers. We're going to start with our foliage, as I always do, picking out the best pieces. That's really pretty, just like that. A bouquet of autumn foliage would just be gorgeous. Next, I'm going to add the heptacodium. I do, when I build bouquets, kind of think about working in a triangle. I find myself doing that, so kind of organizing things by threes, especially when I first begin the bouquet. Okay, so there's the armature of the second bouquet. Now we're putting in the hydrangea. I love that burgundy. I think next we will add the focal flower. We're gonna add our sorry, not aster, chrysanthemum, but they are in the same family. This is the Coral Bells seed pods. I'm gonna kind of cluster those together a little bit. And then I like to repeat that. See, we've got this little moment happening here and this little moment happening here. I'd like to repeat this moment down here a little bit. So we're gonna move some of these down here, and you can just weave it through the bouquet. At this point, I'm sure your hand is very tired. Just try to loosen your grip a little bit. The last thing to add, again, I'm not sure if these will work. They are pretty short stemmed, and that's also something to consider when you're picking. Make sure your stems are as long as you can possibly get them. So these, I think, would be really pretty, kind of just peeking out the edge. So there is our hand-held, hand-tied, all foraged autumn garden bouquet in peach tones. We'll give it a nice cut. It makes it a lot easier to put the rubber band on. And then turn it and decide which way. You know, I originally liked it this way, but I think it's also really pretty turned this way as well. I also have this beautiful velvet, which could be lovely, but I'm thinking I really love color, so I really think this would be a nice match. And I like how it picks up on the center of the chrysanthemum. So I use this lovely silk ribbon. It is hand dyed here in Ohio. It's quite expensive, so when you're using hand dyed silk ribbon, just be really careful with it. When you cut it, you don't want to waste anything. It's too pretty to waste. So I just take that ribbon and put a pin in it up here. So there is our kind of peach mauve inspired, all foraged from the garden bouquet. And I'm really excited about teaching this to all of you because I think it's very doable and we have plants all around us. So you can create some real beauty with what's in nature around you. Thank you so much for joining us today in the garden to create these beautiful autumn, all foraged, with exception to the roses, garden bouquets. Please like our channel. Stay tuned for more floral tutorials.